Disclaimer. Do not send any type of harassment or negativity towards the creators that I review. This includes hateful comments, mass paying the creators, dislike spamming, and toxic videos about them. This video is for entertainment purposes, and even then, what I say could be wrong, so please take my videos with a grain of salt. Enjoy! Okay, so admittedly, I was very harsh on an outdated Vividen video, so I'm going to try again. This time, we're going to be reviewing a video that is more up-to-date. The title is called Saurophaganax, the Predatory Leviathan of the Jurassic. So, as of 2025, the Saurophaganax has been reclassified as Saurophaganax, but this is made in, the beginning of 2024, so I'm going to give Vividen a free pass.
Saurophaganax maximus, the Lord of the Lizard Eaters, is one of the most metal theropods ever discovered.
Calling it mental is also kind of a stretch, but okay.
In this video, we'll analyze what made the ruler of the Jurassic so special, how big it truly was, and how it would have hunted. We'll go through the known specimens, cover cutting-edge size estimates, and analyze Leviathan, the biggest theropod of the Jurassic.
Honestly, I would just go with two different routes. The first one being an average-sized Saurophaganax, now called Saurophaganax, but Saurophaganax. The other one being, like you said, Leviathan, an exceptionally large individual. If I were to do something like a Torvosaurus video, Torvosaurus teneri more specifically, I would do first segment, average mass, Torvosaurus teneri. And the other segment is Edmarca Rex, which is an exceptionally large Torvosaurus teneri. Anyway, enough with the yapping.
Saurophaganax, or Snax for short, is a megatheropod steeped in controversy. It was originally named Saurophagus in 1941, but it turned out that the name was already taken by a bird.
It was more so because the naming article did not contain a description of Saurophagus maximus, the quote-unquote one. It remained a nomen nudum.
In 1995, Dan Chury fixed up the genus by taking a neural arch and making it the holotype for a new taxon, Saurophaganax maximus, and reassigning the old Saurophagus material to it. It's currently defined as a large-bodied allosauride with meat chopper chevrons and dual parasagittal laminae, which differentiate it from Allosaurus, but there's more to the picture.
Okay, so even though this is ultimately outdated and it did not really withstand the test of time, in the time the video was made, aka January 2024, that theory still held up. So, okay, Vividen is accurate over here.
If Allosaurus is the lion of the Jurassic, Saurophaganax is the massive Smilodon. Its tall neural spines indicate a ridged, muscular back compared to Allosaurus, almost Acrocanthosaurus-like.
Again, it's kind of a stretch, given that it's not as blatant as the Acrocanthosaurus. One thing to know about Vividen is that he usually tends to somewhat focus more on just theropods in general. So, it will be a common theme among his videos. But his accuracy is high, so also keep that in mind.
It had high caudal centra as well, which combined with its huge chevrons for a deep, powerful tail. Massive muscle scars on preserved radii indicate strong arms, which makes sense when you look at the monster's claws.
I don't really like calling animals monsters. Vividen unfortunately falls into this calling an animal monster trope, which, okay, I believe it's a one-off, though, so...
I'm not kidding when I say that Saurophaganax was essentially the Indominus Rex in real life.
Let's be honest, though. Saurophaganax is cooler. Calling the Saurophaganax the Indominus Rex in real life is just way too awesome, bro. Are you trying to appeal to awesome bro fans or something? Man, trying for the cool factor. If it's for the Leviathan, then sure, why not? But even then, it's kind of an exaggeration, don't you think? I mean, sure, call it the Indominus Rex in real life if you want to, but keep in mind that Indominus Rex can 1. Camouflage, and 2. Kill animals for sport, something that the Saurophaganax cannot do.
It invested its evolution points into both a bulky WWE wrestler body and claws that would make Spinosaurus proud. Its unguals, when covered in life by a keratin sheath, would have been meat hooks the size of a small machete, curved to better hook into its prey and grapple them as it bit down on vital areas. It was the theropod equivalent of a battleship, armed, dangerous, and massive.
Okay, I don't see any problem with those statements. So let's just continue on with whatever.
And if you want to pilot the mechanical equivalent of a megatheropod,
Let's just skip over the sponsorship. It lasts for over a minute, so we can't really waste a minute of our time watching Vividen just talking about a sponsor.
before we dive into the snacks family, including the gigantic specimens you've heard rumors about, let's go into a little more detail about what makes it different. Thank you to paleontologist Brian Curtis for allowing us to reproduce a segment of his thoughts here.
So I got to thinking, okay, maybe it's a giant Allosaurus. It was originally thought to be an Allosaurus. The only character that Ray used, Stovall, to use to separate it was size.
I'll admit, for a while, I was still quite clueless on what differentiates Allosaurus from the so-called Saurophaganax. Obviously, the Saurophaganax was reclassified as Allosaurus NX, but this is quite cool. This is quite cool to see Saurophaganax 2024. It's still being classified Saurophaganax, and its differences in its anatomy from the Allosaurus rather than its size.
And size is a terrible character to use as a paleontologist. Why? Because when you use size, how do you know if you find a small version of the big animal?
I see. I'll admit I'm not the best one here in terms of accuracy. I'm probably behind a bunch of channels like Vividen or something.
You need to have a character on the bone. Stovall didn't have one, but he knew it was very close to Allosaurus. Enter 1995, Dr. Daniel Cherry, an Allosaurus specialist, went and looked at the Saurophaganax material very carefully. And after a great effort, he discovered one unique character that separates it from Allosaurus that's not size, and that's a parasagittal lamina.
And I can confirm this. It's probably the only thing that differentiates the Allosaurus from the Saurophaganax at the time, besides its size. We're now actually talking to a real paleontologist, so I expect this paleontologist to do quite well in terms of accuracy. Well, 2024 wise, but not 2025 wise. Obviously, there may be some mistakes here and there, but of course, most of them are just cases where they just did not withstand a test of time.
So what's a parasagittal lamina? Para means alongside or near, and it's running right alongside the neural spine and the presygapophyses. Basically, it's these features here. And Allosaurus doesn't have those features, which means we now have a character. If you find a bone, even a smaller Saurophaganax should have these characters on it. He also looked at the chevrons and noticed that the chevrons, these are bones underneath the tail in all these dinosaurs. And they're very different than Allosaurus.
Oh, okay. You learn something new every day, it seems like. Alright. I'm actually learning a bit more about Saurophaganax now. Even though it's not really valid anymore. It's still good to see some antiquity here. You know, 2024 isn't really antiquity, and I'm calling it antiquity. It's a bit of a stretch, but okay.
Allosaurus has your normal chevron. It looks like a Y. It's chevron shaped. Simple. Easy peasy. Saurophaganax also has Y-shaped chevrons up front, but when you get into the middle of the tail, they turn into these meat cleaver chevrons.
As of 2025, or December 2024, these mid-caudal chevrons have been assigned to Diplodocus. Okay, I'm trying to just keep you all up to date here. This is just a mere case of outdated information, so there's not much problem with this.
Interestingly, thanks to convergent evolution, tyrannosaurs have these meat cleaver chevrons. What are they doing with the tail that's different than Allosaurus? I don't know. But I can tell you that the vertebrae of Saurophaganax are giant.
And not only was it a giant, but it lived in a brutal environment. Saurophaganax was discovered in the brushy basin member of the Morrison Formation, which covered part of the late Jurassic.
AKA something tending towards a dry lake bed. So we can assume that the Saurophaganax did not have access to as much water, and of course it also had to hunt a bunch of larger stuff in its environment.
Its remains are known from near Kenton, Oklahoma, and possibly New Mexico. Isotopic analysis of the Kenton quarries indicate a peak temperature range of 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, which is well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. A 2020 study indicated that it was likely that the dinosaurs of the Kenton quarries, including Saurophaganax and a host of sauropods and other herbivores, died during a phase of repeating droughts that made the terrain uninhabitable for animals their size.
Okay, so I have absolutely no problem with this statement once again. Let's just move on.
The Morrison was a semi-arid landscape, mainly dry with some fluvial environments, and it's possible that the Kenton quarries represent the last traces of water. The surviving megafauna would have all gathered together in desperation, forming a death trap for herbivores and carnivores alike as the water dwindled to nothing.
This is in fact correct. However, Jurassic Fight Club has something to say about this theory.
What animals did Saurophaganax live with anyway? While it was clearly the apex predator in its environment, it was far from the only large carnivore. Allosaurus was very common in the area, along with the bulky bobblehead Torvosaurus, the edgy Ceratosaurus, and small predators like Ornitholestes, among others.
They didn't really compete each other as they served different niches. Even when it comes to Allosaurus, Torvosaurus, and Saurophaganax, it is likely that they didn't really compete with each other that much.
And there were herbivores galore to serve as snacks for snacks. Relatively wee fellows like Camptosaurus and Dryosaurus may have been too swift for the heavily built theropod to rely on as a food source, but bigger quadrupeds like Stegosaurus could have been on the menu.
Also, don't forget juvenile sauropods like juvenile apatosaurs and brachiosaurs. Before they just grow too big for the Saurophaganax to deal with. Even juvenile Camarasaurs too.
The biggest source of protein for our friend Swallowsnacks, however, would have been the numerous sauropods it lived with and was adapted to hunt. Camarasaurus, Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Barosaurus, and other fragmentary apatosaurians dominated the gigantic herbivore niche in the brushy basin member.
We have evidence of allosaur bite marks on sauropods. However, none of them showed any signs of healing, which means that it's still inconclusive in the end that the Saurophaganax actually hunted sauropods. It's still unknown. So I'm going to say, while the Saurophaganax did probably hunt juvenile sauropods, in the case of adult sauropods that are too big for the Saurophaganax to deal with, they just resort to scavenging sauropod dead bodies.
These genera ranged in size from about 10 tons to potentially 60 tons or higher, in the case of the largest fragmentary brack and barrow specimens. Obviously, Saurophaganax wouldn't have hunted the biggest adults, which were too large for any carnivore to take on alone.
Glad Vividen agrees with me here. In the end, though, adult sauropods are just way too big for even a larger Saurophaganax to feasibly hunt.
But its bulky build and massive arms and claws would have been great tools for hooking into sauropod flesh. It was not adapted for speed. The fourth trochanter on its femur, associated with muscle attachments that enhance speed, was poorly developed compared to other large theropods.
I was going to criticize this segment for theropod glazing, but I realized this elephant is just a plastic model. So we can let Vividen go about this one. We can also let Ivano Borgi 3D art go with this one. So yeah, this is just a plastic model. That's fine.
Indicating that adults were not likely to be going after fast prey. Notice that I said the biggest adult sauropods of the area were too big for any carnivore to take down alone. The thing is, Saurophaganax may not have been a solo act. Each instance of the genus has been discovered in bone pits, with a jumble of individuals of varying sizes all together. This could represent gregariousness or pack hunting, although it's also possible that multiple lone wolf individuals showed up to take advantage of the high concentration of herbivores at a water source. It's certainly worth thinking about.
I'll probably speculate that the Saurophaganax hunted in loose gangs. And it's quite likely because apex predators like wolves, spotted hyenas, and lions worked together in terms of hunting. But we don't really know about Saurophaganax. It's likely that they, like Mapusaurus, hunted in loose gangs.
Now let's get to know the snacks pack. There are over a dozen Kenton specimens known from a large size range, each with their own codename. We have Munchkin, Skrymir, Loki, Jotun, Hati, Skull, Mimir, Balder, Typhon, Orion, Fenris, Ragnarok, and Leviathan. While none of these represent a complete skeleton, there's enough overlapping material from the Kenton pits that we have a pretty decent idea of the animal's proportions.
I'm curious to see Vividen's take on this. For me at least, a Saurophaganax, on average, is around 3 tons, some larger specimens reach 5 tons, and Leviathan is just an exceptionally large specimen.
The specimen Fenris is the best for scaling, since it has weight-bearing limb bones preserved along with other postcranial material.
Keep in mind that it's likely an above-average weight Saurophaganax.
Scaling from Allosaurus and accounting for the deeper proportions, Fenris is about 5.3 metric tons. That's already well into African elephant territory and solidly places Saurophaganax in the soldier tier of megatheropods by itself.
I don't know if I should go and review that video as well. I'm going to assume that the 5,300 kilograms is based on the square cube law, although I could be extremely wrong here. Using Allosaurus femur length and the Saurophaganax's femur length, more specifically Fenris's femur length, to determine the mass of Saurophaganax Fenris.
Leviathan is the true giant of the group. It's known from at least a gigantic dorsal vertebra, which show low variability within individuals and are pretty solid for scaling. While I can't share the precise measurements, I will tell you that Leviathan's D13 is nearly the same size as the corresponding bone in Sioux.
There is no femur for the Leviathan just yet, so Leviathan's size is still incredibly unclear. We can also just assume that Leviathan is an exceptionally large Saurophaganax. For the time being when this video was released, at least.
That would result in a 12.8 meter, 8,300 kilogram Leviathan based on Fenris. That range is comparable to many specimens of Tyrannosaurus. It makes Allosaurus look puny by comparison and is 2 to 3 tons heavier than the next largest North American theropod, Acrocanthosaurus.
I'd go with just 2, because the Acrocanthosaurus is well into the 6-ton range.
Let's check an updated list of the biggest theropod individuals of the top species, now that we have a new kid on the block. In first place is E.D. Cope, representing Tyrannosaurus with a mass range of 11.5 to 11.7 tons.
I'm going to give him more credit here. This claim actually holds up during its time, because this is January 2024 we're talking about. It is only in 2025 where this claim became obsolete, as a new largest T-Rex was discovered named Goliath, as you can see here.
Second is our friend the giant Gigadentary specimen. We're being very liberal here with a 10.1 ton estimate given the high degree of individual variation in theropod dentaries. And in third place is Leviathan, by far the biggest reliable Saurophaganax specimen at 8.3 tons.
You can't really call it a reliable one where there's just, the Leviathan is still super fragmentary, unlike Fenris, which is more complete.
It went from a relatively obscure maybe Allosaurus to bigger than the Carcharodontosaurus holotype and biggest Spinosaurus specimen, which were about 8.2 tons. Now this is scaling from a bulky Allosaurus, but Saurophaganax's placement may not be as clear as generally thought. Preliminary analysis of the Kenton material has uncovered some skeletal similarities to Carcharodontosaurus, particularly in the ilium and vertebrae that may indicate a more complex picture. If Saurophaganax was really a basal Carcharodontosaur rather than Allosaurid, its more robust proportions would increase its mass yet again.
I will not doubt this guy when it comes to speculation, alright? But I'm just going to give a bunch of my thoughts on it. This speculation I have absolutely no problem with.
It's hypothetical for now, but further research into its anatomy will uncover even more about the warship of theropods. And did I mention that its bones were radioactive?
As with literally any fossil with that matter, there's going to be a bunch of uranium. You know, uranium-235 is literally there. Uranium-238, uranium-235 are literally used to date fossils. The rest of the video just contains of him thanking the people who helped him in creating this project, this video. So I'm just going to leave it there for you. This is actually not a bad video. It's not bad at all. Okay, some of those claims are a little bit far-fetched, but otherwise, this is a good video during its time, and it's almost as accurate as it can get, in January 2024 at least. So, thank you guys for watching this video, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.